Well, let's talk about jazz. Why is jazz the right or a good choice for this set of texts and for the Passion? I know we've talked a little bit about that before, but what does the rhythm, the tonal colors, the improvisation, what are some things in this piece that those aspects really help to make it special?
Well, I think one of the things, like David was talking about in the text, it brings a kind of irreverent playfulness, but nothing bad. Mm-hmm. It gives you another musical point of view, which is very valid. No less valid than Bach, mm-hmm. no less valid than Mozart. The only difference is that the player is the composer at the point of improvisation. But the improvisation is still connected to the piece, mm-hmm. And has to work with the piece being played at the time.
Yeah. Any parts in the pieces that you set where you felt the improvisation had a special role or was trying to wrap around something in particular?
For me, for example, in the Passion story, there were 3 solos. I try to use that as the different parts of the world coming together as creation. I would be sure that God, when he created it, didn't have a mathematical formula. Right. He just did it. And it couldn't have been more perfect. Right. That's what I try to convey with the improvisation there. In the other pieces, it was more about the music. Right. And in the case of Finished, it was just percussion.
Yeah. Bobby, how about you?
Well, I think the jazz idiom has a Latin jazz and straight-ahead jazz like Rub-a-Dub-Dub. I think that might be the only really straight-ahead jazz piece in the 12 numbers. But there's the Latin jazz, the bossa nova, the samba, and different, the waltz that you wrote, the gospel waltz and everything. So there's a number of different ideas with jazz that you can adapt to this particular idiom. And the freedom of expression is there all throughout it. Mm-hmm. And it leaves us a freedom to write what we think are the proper themes in these pieces. So it's a very adaptable form for this to be successful.
I think, Eddie, that jazz works so well because while there's a set of rules for what you do, they're very flexible. And as you said earlier, adaptable. And that's not the case with, a Lutheran chorale. Mm-hmm. There is a format, and if you want it to be a Lutheran chorale or any chorale, you follow that format, and then if you're going to reproduce it or someone else, you sing it exactly the way it is written. Symphonies, Gregorian chant, it's all confined by rules that really the authors and composers did not want broken. Mm-hmm. This is what makes this piece their piece. And I think jazz, each time we have a structure and a format for this, but every time the meat and flesh that comes to life is just a little bit different. And that flexibility that comes with long time and tremendous experience, you don't just get up there and improvise. Some people think you're just off the top of your head. No, it takes a lot of deep proficiency and experience, and that comes out in jazz and in the Jazz Passion in a way it could not, I believe, as a layperson, come out in any other format.
Also, Andy, regarding improvisation, I know I can speak for Bobby, probably yourself too, but I think that when we assign solos at particular parts of our pieces to certain people to play, I think we knew who was playing, and we knew who would give that solo the proper type of feel at that certain time in the piece. I think if other ensembles perform this, that's going to turn into a variable. But we knew who we were writing for when we assigned improv solos.
Well, it'd be interesting to hear other people doing this. We're very privileged that this year we're going to go to New York at St. Peter's Lutheran Church and do the Jazz Passion in New York for the first time. So the 3 of us, want to entice David to go too. The three of us musicians will be there, and we'll hear for the first time other people. That is part of the
Their
beauty of
take.
jazz, because it will be a little different, or maybe very different. But that's okay. That's part of the freedom and the risk taking that goes with jazz.
We
So-
can do a little coaching too.
we can do some coaching, right? And then actually we're going to have the privilege of doing this work in both Leipzig and Berlin, Germany, and also Nitra, Slovakia at a university, all taking place in March, April this year. I did want to just point out a couple solos that you two played in Push Me Spirit, Push. That is this piece where Jesus is in the wilderness and he's feeling this loneliness, and also he's being challenged. Satan's in the wilderness and trying to draw him out. And I think, Bobby, on the trumpet solo that you play on that, on the recording and in the live performances, you really capture the sense of Jesus and some of the feelings he must be having.
Thank you.
And then Bobby Schiff on the piano. What I hear in your playing may not be what you were thinking, but I hear you portraying the desert. I hear you laying out that wilderness.
Yeah, I think you're right. But you know, funny you should mention that, because my image of desert in that solo is southwestern desert.
Yeah,
Like with the cactus. And,
sure. There's some parts of it that are also reassuring. So it wasn't, I didn't take it as a barren landscape where you're just desolate. I had the mix, and that's sort of the interesting, goes back and forth between those feelings. But that's the kind of nuance that when you give an artist of these gentlemen caliber the freedom to suddenly paint on that blank canvas and express what they're picking up from the text and what's been going on with the horns and the singers at a time, you get just some amazing, amazing creations.
Hallelujah.